Dear God, thank you for this day that you've given us, and thank you so much for the adventure program. And I pray that everyone here gains a blessing and goes back energized to do the mission work at their own adventure camp and a club in your name. Amen. I am not long-winded. I found out the last one, so I think we'll be good. I guess I'm supposed to be done at 4:10 or something. 4:20 is the next thing, I think, on the list. So, all right. Martin Cunningham. I teach in Northeast Tennessee, a small school, and I am not what I'd call a discipline expert. But the word discipline comes up all the time, both for myself as I try to think, how can I be a better teacher? How can I be better serving my students? I think of me needing a more disciplined life, and as well as how can I help classroom discipline. To me, a discipline plan is a little bit like a spare tire, or you sometimes when you go on a trip, you did everything but make sure the spare tire was in good working order. And you see them on the side of the road, trailers especially, right? That's the way a discipline plan can be. You did everything else, but you didn't stop to think, what if this certain kid decides to do, and since you didn't plan, it's a major pain. And to me, I'm sending the wrong message when I'm not prepared, and I talked about this in my other talk. I never want to send the message that children or parents that cause me problems are in the way of my program. They're the reason for my program. And I keep saying that to myself as a need to prepare. Preparing is the answer. When I have prepared, problems are a little bit more like, I'm almost, if a guy has a power tool, he's almost like, what can I chop? What can I cut? And if a guy had a vehicle like this, he would be hoping for a difficult stream to cross, right? And so a good behavior plan, a good discipline plan feels a little bit like that. And you can truly treat the child as the reason for the program instead of in the way. The idea of working with a bunch of kids terrified me. For years, even into being a teacher, it would drive me to get up early in the morning and to spend long hours with God, not thinking I could do it, but especially in the beginning. So I started out in college not thinking I was going to be a teacher, and God's telling me, yeah, you're going to be a teacher. Oh, what in the world? And so I decided to take a year off and go to an island where I could actually try teaching for a year. And as I said earlier, I signed up for 6th grade. You don't pick 8th grade, but I got stuck with 8th grade. And they don't just drop you on the island, they take you to Hawaii. So all of us that were going to be in an island, we all went to Hawaii for a week. And the main topic there is they're trying to get us going for our school year is discipline. And as I'm learning about it, I'm just starting to freak out. And then I get to my island and I doing my last minute preparations. I'm not one that dreams and remembers it in the morning, but I had this dream. And it was worse than a nightmare, because a nightmare, when you wake up waking up is the answer, and you're now awake and you realize, wow, that's not true. But mine was worse than that, because waking up didn't solve the problem. So here's the dream. I know where my classroom is, and I've got 23, I know that, and this is how the dream goes. Everything is going well, and we go out to recess, and the kids are playing nicely. And then it's time to call them in, and I blow the whistle, time to go in. And they just kind of look at me, and one of them says, "Make me." Well, you can't let them win, so I pick them up, and I go up the stairs, and I throw them in the door, a classroom, shut and lock the door. And now the rest of them are ready, so I have to work hard. Eventually catch kid number 2 and grab him, go up the stairs and throw him in, lock, and I wake up in the middle of this process, and they're starting to come out the windows, and I'm not really getting headway at this point. And waking up isn't the answer because I'm awake and I still can't figure out why would 23 eighth graders listen to one doesn't know how to teach person. And so as the first day is coming, I'm just, oh no, this is going to be the end. It's going to be the end. And the day goes just like my dream as I'm explaining my expectations and I'm introducing things, and the first recess comes and I'm trying to be a good teacher and interact with the kids and play, but my life is about to end. And I remember looking down and it was 10 minutes and finally it was time for my life to end. And I blow the whistle. And I'll never forget, they just stop and they walk up the stairs and they stop on the balcony in a nice orderly file. They don't even go in. They're like waiting for me. I'm still down on the ground with a whistle in my mouth going, what just happened, you know? So I quickly catch up and I remember walking by. I'm like, that's right, you better do that, you know? And so this is my introduction to discipline. So I'm not up here like, oh, this is how you do it. I was terrified. And God showed me a lot, but I mean, literally every week I would start, you know, the Sunday I would think, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I don't know if it's payback. I tell my kids that God makes bad kids into parents and really bad kids into teachers, so I don't know if that's true or not. But always looking and to try to improve how I teach, how I manage the kids, and sometimes I catch myself. So we have big dogs, and we've had, our kids are growing up now, but they were pretty little, and we had these big dogs, and my wife is working on how to make the big dogs have good manners and stuff. And so I don't know if you've heard of Caesar the dog whisperer. So my wife is all into watching these, my kids like them, and I'm watching one, and I realize I'm not thinking at all about the dogs. I'm thinking, yeah, this is good. And I'm thinking of my students. And I'm not really thinking of my students as animals, because what I'm realizing is he goes to help. These people will call him and they're in trouble. And of course they think the problem is with the dog. And you go and listen to the episode and you realize, yeah, the dog's got some issues, but who's the problem with? Yeah, the owner. And you know, you'll see this hyper dog that can't relax, and then he's interviewing the owner, and she's just twitching and she can't, you know. Or they're trying to walk by another dog and the owner is terrified of how it's going to go, and surprise, surprise, so is the dog. And so I'm not thinking the dog at all. I'm thinking classroom, students. This is how I bet when I'm irritated, and this is why as a parent you wonder why your kids are the worst when you're at your wit's end. Why can't they be better when, you know, like God, you know? But I think it explains it. They're kind of wearing your emotions. And so what I learned from that is we need to be calm, we need to be confident, we need to be the leader. They are looking to you to be the leader, and when you step aside and make it obvious to them by your lack of confidence, by your lack of leadership, you're saying you're in charge. Now some of them are kind of used to that, but in all kids it brings this anxiety in them, like it does with that little dog, that now, okay, so now I have to defend, I've got to defend, and they kind of do the best they can, but that's what you get with kids when you're saying to them, you're in charge, go ahead. So have a plan. Sometimes I cringe when a new teacher starts out the year asking, you know, the class to develop the rules. Not that I don't like to involve my kids, especially as they get older, and be teaching them and trying to get them to buy in. But sometimes right off the bat, what we're saying to the child, what we're saying to the class is, you know, you guys are the ones in charge. So especially in today's society, I think we need to be the ones helping them to understand it's not the way it works. I've also been frustrated. I thought good teachers play with the kids, good parents play with the kids, right? And so after recess is over, I'm frustrated that why is that kid still trying to jump on my back? and I'm feeling disrespected, and I'm thinking I must be doing something wrong, and I am. I'm just like the dog. He won't quit either unless you say clearly when playtime begins and when playtime ends. You are doing a good job by playing with them, but if you don't have those clear boundaries, you're going to get this coming over into areas where they shouldn't. Exercise, I can't say enough about incorporating exercise into your program. I've had students, oh, my child, he's just going to need to stop and go outside and swing. And I'm thinking, how's this going to work? And then she brought in a trampoline, and he's going to need to just bounce sometimes. This long list of things that her child is going to need to do, but every morning we do these 8-count push-ups, and that's for all the kids, not all of them. And then when you get in trouble, the number one thing is push-ups, and the child needed none of that. And I think that in general, we would ask the kids to sit like you guys are, and you guys are having trouble, and yet we expect the kids to. We need to see the value of exercise, just like, what he noticed is that was one thing he noticed is these people have these large dogs in a small apartment, and they go to work, and then they come back and wonder why the dogs tore up their couch. So we do the same with our kids, I think. Be happy. You are a salesperson. This was almost everything I learned from somebody else. This is probably my second year into teaching, and this guy who sells, he's a salesman for a living, he asked me what I thought about this idea that we Adventists are selling happiness, and I had to think about that for a while, but I think he's right. I think that we're all trying to be happier. All of us, every single person in the world is trying to be as happy as possible. And I think our kids are looking to us to see if what we're selling is legitimate. And if we are not happy people as we're going about teaching them, then we're not selling a product that appeals to them. They're fine. They actually expect to be punished. They'll grumble while they're getting punished. But if you are happy the whole time, you are selling something very positive to them. Limit exceptions. I find that the younger a child is, the less they can understand an exception. If there's a rule but an exception to it, they struggle to see, well, do I need to follow the rule or do I not? Do we go to church or do we not? The older you get, it's easier to understand that there are exceptions to every rule, but limit them with these young children because they don't understand, well, is it important since we didn't do it this one time? Work within your strengths. If you're modeling something that you can't do yourself, if you're explaining something then you don't know how to do it yourself, they may actually struggle to respect you. They're gonna see like, well, how are you my leader? You can't do what you're trying to teach me to do. Even get another student up there if it's something that you can't do, but this older student can. They just struggle with that. When they see you mess up, I find sometimes I'll have a teacher's aide, and it will become obvious to one student that my teacher's aide has forgotten how to do that math problem. And my 6th grader isn't mature enough to realize we're all going to forget if we haven't used that math in 10 or 15 years, but they're not mature enough to understand that. So just be careful how you put yourself up there clumsily, because they're going to struggle some. Another thing that's not fair, but I think I have seen it a lot, is that men and women aren't given equal respect in the beginning. I found that when I step in front of a bunch of students, I have their respect until I lose it. I find sometimes with women, they don't have it in the beginning. Now, they can get it in seconds or minutes, but they don't have it in the beginning. And it's not fair, but I think that if you know that and go into that, realize they're flexible, again, it'll happen very quickly, but it's just a reality that I have seen, is that as women, you don't always start with it. Again, I do all I can to build up my coworker because again, sometimes they'll think also that maybe a lower grade teacher can't do the upper grade math or something, and I have to explain, well, they went to college just like I did. Again, there's some inequalities there that I think we can help our students through. How to think. I want to try every morning to make sure I am thinking positively about any situation that is easy to think negatively about. Act surprised when a bad kid is bad. And I'm being really blunt here. I don't think they're bad, but you understand what I'm saying? Some kid does something that they've done 30 times before, and every bone in your body is like, here we go again. But there's something really motivating about treating that child like, I didn't think that you would have done that. Like you're reminding them that you see something better in them. So act surprised when that kid goes down that road instead of like, yeah, I expected that from you. How motivating is that? If that's what I expected you to do, it's not very motivating. You need one clear leader. Even if you have an assistant, make sure that assistant knows how to be an assistant. If you are the assistant, make sure you understand how to be an assistant and how your leader wants you to act, because the students get confused when they don't know who's in charge. Parents chatting in the back. Sorry, these words aren't real easy to see. What's that?
With the large club, that's one of our biggest struggles.
Okay.
Workshops and meetings, like the parent chatting in the background and telling the kids to be quiet and having to address
Yes.
adults. This is for you too.
Yeah. If you have to print something out to hand to the parents, or if you have to put something, I like to have a theme that drives my plan, and it goes something like, I think it's in your handout, that says, our classroom needs to be a place where we can learn in a caring and safe environment. And I've got my theme memorized so that I'm comfortable going back to it and explaining to a parent or a child why I'm having trouble with what you're doing. But you've got to be comfortable dealing with the parents. But again, if you have a reasonable theme like that nobody can argue with a theme like that, it becomes a little bit easier to deal with that. But the best way to deal with the chatting parents is to give them that expectation before, not in reaction to. Because you might actually be embarrassing them in front of their kids. It's just a lot better to get that out of the way before they've failed.
And in addition to that, one thing that's ever worked for me, sometimes when I'm speaking up front and people are not listening, kids, parents, whatever, I'll walk in their direction.
Yeah.
And give eye contact.
Yeah.
And keep speaking or involve them somehow in what I'm doing.
Right.
And you'd be surprised, just looking at them, they'll be quiet very quick.
Yeah.
Or get off their phone or whatever that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah, I think everybody here can probably relate to the chatting in the back, and I think that we've done it. I think we've done it too.
Yeah.
We think we're the good guys and we can't possibly interrupt something, so we're good to go, but then we get too loud without meaning to. So realize you've done it when you're treating them this way, but again, before they do it is, I think, the best time. Yeah, something along that lines, actually. You know, my favorite time to tell a child exactly what they should have done differently is right after they failed. But that is the worst time, that, like, they know they failed. And I'm learning to grab them when they're feeling good and tactfully talk to them about some problem that I think maybe we'll have again, and we just kind of have a light conversation about that. Their ears are open, and that actually works. But it's harder because I'm not thinking about it if I haven't written it down or something. But that's something I have learned too. Behavior consequence. I don't think I have my ladder here. I was thinking, I don't know if you guys can do, let's see what my next slide is. Yeah. There needs to be two themes to your, whatever your system, whatever your consequence system is. You stretching, or do you have a question in the back? I think she's just stretching. Okay. There are two basic types of things going on. There's the kid that's challenging you or doesn't want to cooperate, and then there's really the masses that really are trying to cooperate. They're just being too loud. They're running when they should be walking, and they're not listening as closely as you would like them to. And so that first one, the small consequences for students whose attitudes are still good, you need to be thinking about what you're going to do there. You do need a consequence that wears them out before it wears you out. Because kids a lot of times come from homes where they're used to wearing the mom, the dad out, and they'll tell you how it works, and they'll tell you all about it if you listen to them, if you ask them that question. But they're pretty good, a lot of them, at wearing the parents out, and I think that it tells them something. There is a text that makes it sound like if I keep knocking, if I keep begging God, He will eventually. But I think that's misapplied. I really think that if it wasn't for my good, it doesn't become good for me after begging. So if my child is asking something of me that is not good for me to give to them, how does it, if I teach them that if you beg enough, then I give it to you, I'm telling the child, I am not your guide. I'm kind of this stubborn, I'm like Congress maybe, I don't do anything fast, and I'm kind of in the way. And I want to teach them that if it was right or if it was wrong, begging doesn't change that. So my thing in the classroom is 10 push-ups, which is pretty easy. But there's a lot of other things we can do, but the reason I do that is because it's quick. They can do it wherever they're at, and they get right back into learning instead of like 5 minutes in the corner. So they do 10 push-ups, and that was easy for them, and then they are right back to misbehaving, and I say 20, and pretty soon they find out that I can say 30 and 40 and 50, and I'm still smiling and still actually not using even very much of my brain power to do that, and I'm still working with the class, and they realize, he's not wearing out. This isn't working very well for me as I'm working on 40, having done 10 and 20 and 30. So have a plan that wears them out. It's just good for them to feel like bumping up against the wall that I shouldn't climb. That wall isn't going to go away. The wall is stronger than them, is what I think is healthy for them to see. Have a plan for when attitudes turn sour. And again, my theme says that my classroom needs to be a place where learning can be happening and it can be a safe place. And I don't know exactly what your options are, but the thing is they don't get to stay in here unless they're cooperating with you. You don't have to feel like you have some horrible thing that'll teach him. You just need to send the message that the students that are in here are cooperating with me. And if you have to say that to a parent, you have to say it to them. But that's your theme helps you. All I want is for a classroom where we can learn and get along, and you're kind of in the way right now. Your attitude's in the way of that. Oh boy. Can we read that at all? I can't.
Turn on the light.
Look down at the computer.
What's that?
It's on your computer screen there. You should be able to.
Make it brighter?
Well, no, I'm saying you can see it at least.
Oh, right. Gotcha. I'm like, I don't see how I can. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's on the handout.
Yeah.
Now, the push-ups things that you're talking about a little bit older kids.
What's that?
A little bit older kids, right? Like, is
What's the adventure?
Little Lamb starts at like 4.
4 through 11.
4 through 11. So
Here's how nuts little kids are.
they enjoy it.
So I had this rule when I was teaching grades 1 to 4 that we needed to do good push-ups, and so if you couldn't yet do a good push-up from your toes, you would get on your knees. And every Friday I'd bring a board, and the kids that wanted to test out, I'd strap the board to their back and I'd lower them, and they got to see if they could do big boy push-ups, you know, and from their toes. And all the parents are like, don't do it, you know, because if you don't test out, you can still do the kneeling ones. And the parents are all confused why the kids are like, once in a while I'd forget the board. And they're like, we wanted it, and all the kids are dying to test out. What I have is a behavior plan that makes the kids feel better about themselves. And that too, there's a number of times where my kids that have the most push-ups or the most laps, if I have time, I'm running with them. And what I'm trying to do with the behavior plan with a punishment is not to degrade, but to uplift. And, you know, so what's the downside of getting stronger and getting in better shape? And so, yeah, to answer your question, the little kids, I don't know if there's an age group where they wouldn't want to try. Now, they're bad.
I can picture my oldest is 9. I could totally see him doing it, you know.
Yeah.
Some of the first couple classes, I think we taught like little lambs and eager beavers and stuff. I could see them getting really confused and start running in circles.
Yeah.
Breaching it is an opportunity to roll around on the floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just
Right.
what age you were thinking of is when you were training.
I just want to make sure, here's the principle, as I am very flexible on the exercise, but here's the thing, a number of my students will misbehave simply from the overabundance of energy. And so why would I want to get real grouchy on you if I haven't at least tried to cleanse you of that problem first? So have something that gives them a chance to wear them out a little bit in a good way, so they can, some of them are really internally bouncing off the walls. And jumping jacks is another one. Yep. Yeah, just maybe a higher number. I mean, you realize the numbers are at you can kind of figure it out. Yeah. Better to start strict and loosen up later. The challenge for me with this one is I think after day 3, I think, well, they're really listening to me. I sure did a good job of starting out strict. And then I'll start loosening up on day 4. And the hard thing I found is to, you know, go a little bit longer. It takes a little longer than that. I really, with these 8th graders in Chuk on that island, I thought I had a bunch of angels because I made it to day 3, and I'm like, well, I was obviously wasted a bunch of time with my discipline plan, all that work I did. Started loosening up on day 4, and that was a little bit too early. Err on the side of structure and order. It fixes so many things. It says so many things mentally to the kids that maybe your program is worth paying attention to, because my goodness, it started right on time, and look how you're dressed, and look how everything just seems ready. That just says so much to the kids. Yeah, this accomplishes the following. Says your program is important. It gives them less to squabble over, like you've already thought about how many balls you need to play the game. Helps them focus. Be willing to grade yourself. So I give myself A, B, C, D, F grades on how I think I taught math, how I think I taught language arts. Be willing to grade yourself. You might stink at discipline. I think I have somewhere there. Ask 3 friends, 3 trusted friends, because I found out that the more, you know, some of us were real passionate. We had got real highs and real lows in our personality. We're either real happy or real sad. The more you are like a roller coaster, the more you have to realize that discipline-wise, you're going to want to give them the death penalty when you're in the valley. And when you're on the mountain, anything goes. And we're all more like this than we want to admit. Ask a friend, or ask the kids what they think. What's that?
We love you, but you stink.
Yeah. Yeah. So most of us are more inconsistent than we think we are. Most of us aren't strict enough. Strict maybe is a bad word in a lot of our minds, and really maybe structure and consistent is a better one. Also, we might need a model. I have told teacher friends, I've told them stuff, like given them pointers, and then I've watched what they thought I told them to do, and I'm shaking my head going, no, that's not at all what I thought I told them. I remember telling one about, I think they need more repetition in math, and then I find out later they're getting like 300 problems. And it was a homeschooler friend, and you know, she wasn't like a certified teacher or anything, and I'm like, that's not what I didn't think I said that. So sometimes modeling is what we all need to see, or what you need to maybe show your assistant or somebody that's struggling. If they haven't seen it, they might actually come away with this: I tried that and it didn't work. There's also a book for every bad parenting strategy that exists too. Everyone can get a book that like pats them on the back too. So use your plan, not your irritated voice. The people I run into that don't seem to have much of a plan, or they don't believe in discipline, what they do is they spank their kids with their voice. And the kids would much rather get 10 push-ups, and it's so much more positive when they see. Sometimes they're a little bit surprised. A lot of your kids come to your program and they think they're not going to get into any trouble until you start to get irritated. And it throws them for a loop when they're getting in trouble and you're still having a good day. Because at home, the rules, well, it's all about not getting dad mad. But it's demeaning to be yelling at your kids. And so I just try to have a plan instead, because I'm not irritated with them. I don't want to be when I am. I just want to use my plan, and it's all for their good. Teach them not to be ugly. If you're here earlier, I was talking about my adjustment to being married, as opposed to just dating, where if I was having a bad day, I didn't need to go out with Rhonda that day. But now that I'm married, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I have to be a human being. And she taught me that, you know, I can have every emotion, but not be ugly. And so this is what I teach to my kids. If you're sad, I'm not going to try to force you to put a smile on your face, but I want to teach you how to work through it. And just because you got hurt, a lot of kids on the playground, they get hurt, and then someone tries to pick them up, and especially the one that tripped them, and that's being ugly. We're all sorry you got hurt. Let's not add ugly to that. There are usually two sides. I always kind of laugh when a third political party tries to gain any traction in our country. I really think there's two sides always, and very rarely more than two sides. But just realize when a little kid comes to you, there's usually two sides. You guys probably know that. Words sometimes equal punches. I don't know. Let me tell you a story. I had a pastor, and we were working out together. We were great friends. But we had a little disagreement one time over this. There was this little, his son was a little guy, but smart. And then there was this other student that was big and not as smart. And the little guy, all class time long, is picking at him verbally. And then one day, big guy's had too much, and little guy's going on and on during recess, and he gets punched. And I send them both home. And oh my, from the pastor. And I was trying to explain that, they were both using the tools they had. I think it was about even. So I think sometimes words are equal to punches. So I think also where I was going with that is I think that nowadays in society it's so evil to punch somebody. Are we as careful about the words that come out? Since it's harder to control what my student might say in the bathroom to another student, I need to find out what maybe happened when someone gets punched. because I think that we stifle a lot of problems that end up blowing up later because we don't value, well, what that kid was, what someone said to him. Some Bible verses here. Punishments need to be real and administered immediately. This one in Ecclesiastes says that a lot of wrong keeps on going because, in our justice system, it might be a year or two before your court date comes up. And sometimes if you don't have a real quick punishment that you can do now, it doesn't work very well when the child just sees a check on the board that means tomorrow or when recess comes he's going to have this. Sometimes it's better to have something real quick. Proverbs, when is Proverbs? I forgot what 29:19 says. It says, a servant will not be corrected by mere words, for though he understands, he will not respond. So you tell and tell and tell them not to do something. You really just need a small punishment. They understand what you're saying, but even the Bible is saying they're not going to respond unless there's something either positive if they don't do it or negative if they do. Another verse from the Bible says, I'll read it from the Bible here. It says, like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is a man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking. So be careful what you allow your children to get away with or get off the hook with by saying, oh, just kidding. Just something to think about. And then love them in the language they speak. I find that we don't grow out of this. We are desperately looking for that doctor, that dentist, that mechanic to do something to show me he cares. We get irritated when it seems like they're not even willing to give me the time of the day. These kids they will go miles for you if you can find that one little thing that in their mind is going outside your job description. If you're in the earlier class, remember in my mind, I still think that my dad and I wrestled every Saturday night. But I asked him, and I know that was way off. And then my wife thought this pastor came and played with them every recess, and it may have only been once. But in both of our minds, something was done that was above their job description. We enjoyed it so much. And so if you can find a way to love them in the language they speak, you'll have accomplished more for your discipline plan than anything else. And this goes true with the parents too. If I can do something, usually with their child, that means so much to them, my goodness, have I got a supportive parent now. Because who are we all love? Who do we care about more than anybody else in the world is those kids. Oftentimes we're on opposite sides, but if we can get on the same side, that's a wonderful thing. So love them in the language they speak. So any. Oh, okay. I was kind of enjoying the fact that I can kind of not use okay, something really cool that I learned in college, and it was weird. Sometimes, just like the dog whisper, things that apply when it doesn't seem like it's even related. It was a PE class, and he was just explaining how 10% of your children will do well and cooperate no matter how lousy of a leader you are. So I have students in my class that will learn the material almost without me even showing up. Then sometimes you've got this other 10%, no matter what you do, it's not the right time in their life, and sometimes we have to face that. No matter how well you do, you're not going to be it for them. But there's this 80%, and to me this is really motivating for me to get my act together. There's 80% that will go either way. If you do right by the kids, you've got that 80%. If you mess up, that 80% goes the other way, and I can live with that. I can live with the fact that there will be some that don't respond, but I can't be happy with the fact, I can't use that 10% to pat myself on the back. I need to recognize, no, there's 80% that go back and forth. So thank you for that. I am not looking at my notes. So any questions? I am done with my thing. Yeah.
I was just going to say, my best friend is an elementary school teacher, and I never forgot one story she told me. She is a really pretty strict disciplinary person, and all her kids were doing great, but she had this one kid, no matter what consequence she handed out, he was just fight it. And so as a last resort, she finally decided to change her own attitude in a way towards the child and start praying with him. She told him every day, we're going to stop and we're going to pray together before school starts, and he wasn't happy about it at first, but she did it week after week after week. And then one day he came in, and I guess she got busy for a few minutes, and he was just like, Mrs. Such and Such, he was like, we didn't pray today. And she said he became one of her best students.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a student, and it made me feel old because I'm not supposed to get those calls yet, just telling me what a wonderful teacher I was to him. So anyway, that my first reaction was, man, I'm old. But his parents were old, and they couldn't play with him, and their discipline plan was sit down, let's have a long discussion about what you did and why you shouldn't have done it, and pat on the back, and he's just getting more and more. I mean, so what happens on a daily basis in first and second grade is I dismiss him because his ride is here. And then a little bit later, I see a blur go by the window, followed by a parental blur. And I go out there and I say, get in the car, and he gets in the car for me. A few years down, a little bit later, he's now locking his mom out. Like, she'll come in to talk to me about, we started having more behavior problems in the classroom. Well, now he's locked her out, and he won't let her back in. If I go, he just opens. And I'm trying to show them, anyway, without disrespecting them, some of the tools that you can use, but it's just getting worse and worse. One day in 6th grade, his dad calls, I can't get him to come to school. He says he won't come to school. And I said, well, you got to win this one, man. And he's like, and I said, you want me to come? They didn't live too far away, and so I drove down there and wasn't sure what I was going to find, but he's hiding, so we got to find him. And so I find him, and he's still in his pajamas, and so I've talked to my coworkers, so she's got worship and stuff, and said, well, where's the school clothes, and they showed me, and so I went in there and I said, you've got 5 minutes to decide how you're coming to school. Here's your clothes, and he didn't do anything in the 5 minutes. So, here's Michael, and here's his clothes, and he's clawing and scratching the walls as we go outside. And then I'm realizing I don't think I can drive with him in a headlock. So, so his dad drives us, and then, but a little thing I think that made a difference is instead of going into the school, we went into the gym because I felt like, if I cannot embarrass him, maybe we've got something. So as soon as we went in the restroom, he's changed, and we're talking, and then he's ready to go back. And by morning recess, he comments, I wish you were my dad. And this is a kid that we've got a couple kids, my wife and I, that we feel like we've built their body, like they're roly-poly when we meet them, and then all the laps and push-ups that they've gotten. But don't you think they feel better? I mean, we're not. Anyway, so he just called me the other day. I was just about a month ago, just before school started this year, and I just kind of reinforced that they don't hate discipline. He didn't know at all what to do with his dad's method of just there and talking. I think talking works a lot better after they've learned the consequence. At a young age, children need to learn that disobedience causes pain. And if they've never, experienced that, I don't know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier when you were talking about people with punches. I think it's a little worse than that.
Sure,
Evil. I
sure,
think,
sure.
You know, back in my day, what she gets worried about after is, you know, catching the beat down after school,
Yeah.
or again, is catching the swirly. You know, I don't know if you know what that is.
A swirly?
Swirly.
I do know what it is. Yeah,
So, but today, like, especially with social media,
yeah,
kids, you know,
yep,
they'll take that online, and then you got people who have nothing to do with the situation compound that, and then you got more kids talking about suicide today
Yep.
than there ever was.
yep.
And I think
Yeah, I feel like growing up, a lot of our issues were fixed in a small fight after school. I mean, I'm not for fighting. I'm just saying we're not dealing with the words very well, and it's causing big problems. So.